Commissioner Hooker,
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Mr. Chair, there is an in-person quorum present.
All right, we are all here. It's nice to see everyone in the flesh. All right, let's adopt the agenda. The agenda has been presented to the board for review and comment. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda? It says as amended, but there is no amendment. We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Kirsch and seconded by Commissioner Alvarado. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor of the motion to adopt the agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, I don't think I heard any nays or abstentions. The motion is carried. All right.
Commissioners, before you are the minutes of the regular Board of Commissioners meeting held on June 26, 2024, for review and comment. Are there any proposed corrections to the minutes of the regular Board of Commissioners meeting?
All right, hearing nothing, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 26, 2024.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Elliott and seconded by Commissioner Faruqi. Is there any discussion related to this motion to approve the minutes? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right, I didn't hear any abstentions or opposition. The motion is carried. This is our time for public comment. Have any members of the public signed up to speak or provided any comments in advance of the meeting?
Oh, Mr. Chair, we have no members of the public have signed up to speak, nor did we receive any comments in advance of the meeting.
All right, well, then this ends the public comment portion of the meeting. And so we will move into resolutions.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of Resolution Number 2435, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to take all actions necessary to submit a site acquisition application to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and to consummate the acquisition of the property located at 450 Hank Aaron Drive, formerly known as the Stadium Hotel.
All right, may I have a motion to consider Resolution 2435?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Kirsch and seconded by Commissioner Hooker. Dr. Allen Ferguson, you're up.
All right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chairman Stewart and fellow Board Commissioners. So what you have before you today is a request for approval for us to proceed with the acquisition of 450 Hank Aaron Drive, known as the Stadium Hotel. I'm very excited. I think the whole team is excited because this potential acquisition represents, not only an opportunity for us to continue to add to our assets in that immediate vicinity. You may recall that Capitol View is their major redevelopment in close proximity, but it also provides a tremendous opportunity for us to gain a significant asset that could be responsive to the community in an area that's undergoing tremendous transformation and change. Being the center of activity, a growing center of activity for Georgia State University, a tremendous amount of additional housing investments, primarily market rate and focus towards students going on in the area, as well as continued addition of amenities and services in the area. Most recently, you may recall a new Publix just opened up down the street from this particular location. So all of that happening in addition to major investments throughout the corridor with the currently under construction MARTA BRT route that's going to pass right before this site. So I'm very happy that we're in what I think is a fantastic position in regards to this property and this asset. Because not only we just received the environmental clearance yesterday and there are no environmental issues of significant impact, which is great considering the age of this property, but also the building has been previously permitted and approved to proceed with adaptive development for multifamily units. So we've got a clear pathway to redevelop this existing property, and we get the additional bonus for an additional pad site for a future planned development. So the team is assembled. We are ready to move forward in the coming weeks. We'll vet out the proposals and what will get included in the potential RFP. My goal from a timeline perspective is to get that RFP out on the street during the month of September, We want to move very quickly, and hopefully by the end of this year, going into January of 2025, select, a winning respondent to that RFP so we can move quickly into negotiations and activating this site during the year of 2025, hopefully in advance of the FIFA activities that are coming to our city. So the acquisition price is up to $17.5 million. We've already reserved the funds. We've reserved funds and budgeted for any holding costs and maintenance, and we're ready to move forward with your approval. So more than happy to answer any questions, but we request your approval at this point in time.
Dr. Ferguson, quick question. Once we make the application to HUD, what is their process for review and approval, and how long do we expect it to take?
I think it's a 6-day process. I actually defer to my Senior Vice President of Real Estate, Maya Hadari, who's well experienced in that HUD process.
Did you say 6 or 60? Okay.
We talked to HUD, to the HUD Office of Revitalization staff when they were here for our MTW site visit. It was your question, Commissioner Hooker. I'm looking at Chairman. We talked to them in May and told them that we were excited about this opportunity, and they promised us to turn around their approval in 30 days.
Awesome.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I have a quick question. First of all, this is an exciting opportunity, and the timing is great for moving forward on this. I think both for the public as well as all of us, give us a sense of when we acquire a property to bring into Atlanta housing, how do we decide whether it should be developed and handled under AUDC versus Atlanta housing?
So that is actually an excellent question. I think this particular type of opportunity really presents a different type of asset per se, because when it came to us, it was essentially already planned and designed as an adaptive reuse. So it wasn't an issue of necessarily deciding what the programming would be. We knew it was going to be offered up as multifamily rental. The question that we need to figure out was exactly how we were going to program it in regards to what is going to be the focused and targeted tenant base. For other types of opportunities that are more of a blank slate, it might be more beneficial to us to advise and turn those opportunities over to the AUDC, especially when they involvement within a more broader, comprehensive development plan. Hence, that was one of the driving factors around allowing the AUDC to take the lead on the Thomasville Heights type of RFP proposal.
So that makes sense, and I asked the question partly because I think for properties we don't own, makes absolute sense, right? That the
Yes.
AUDC handles those because it's public land.
Yes.
And we are really the agent that is helping to drive development and a partner. I think for going forward, for properties that we purchase and own, it would be helpful to develop some sort of criteria for if this is true, really AUDC is better positioned to handle it because, whatever the answers might be, right?
Yes.
You may need more private partnership, or you need to do something that is less driven by HUD guidelines. Or if these other things are true, then it makes sense to sort of use a more traditional approach. At some point, it would just be helpful,
Yes.
I think, for this board and presumably for the real estate committee as well, where we have more of these conversations, to just kind of get a better sense. And I think it'll also sort of push the AUDC board as well as our team to really be thoughtful about, are we doing the best job of optimizing all the levers we have, all the vehicles we have, to develop properties in ways that, just accelerate impact. So I just offer that up as something that would be helpful to see when it's possible to bring that back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I have, my question is it the desire to keep the structure the way it is, or is it intention to demolish it and build something new?
No, the intent is to keep the structure the way it is. The way it's structurally designed, there can be some movement of walls and changes within the interiors, and that's what we're going to do to create some larger size units versus how it was purposed as a hotel previously. But the intent is not to demolish the hotel.
And the reason I asked the question is a precursor to my point that I figured as much, but I wanted the answer because I wanted to show gratitude for preserving Atlanta's history
Yeah.
through buildings, right? And that is whether it's designated or not, that building has historical value. I mean, in the city of Atlanta,
Yeah.
we've all seen that building as long as we've been here. And the fact that we are conscientious of that, I think that needs to be noted. And I hope that we will tell that narrative about our intentionality of preserving Atlanta's history in regards to its architecture and its buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments? All right.
If I could, the only comment I would add is one, I want to thank, well, I guess I have two comments. I want to thank Commissioner Faruqi for that distinction between projects that are the responsibility of AUD or Atlanta Housing, because I do think that's important for us to be very clear and concise and articulate that. But then secondly, with Commissioner Alvarado, literally not even an hour ago, we had a conversation between our IT department and real estate department to discuss capturing the history of what's happening on our former public housing sites in any development opportunity we have. Within Atlanta Housing, we do have a role of an archivist, and so we want to make sure that we frame out the footprint of that role as well as the blueprint and the work to really capture the great work that we're doing. But again, to your point of preserving the historic nature of respecting the historic integrity of the development opportunities we have before us, we want to make sure we capture that and be able to tell that story.
All right. Hearing no further comment.
I'm just glad it's going to be a senior building.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. I did not hear any, certainly won't have any abstentions. The motion carries, and we will move on to the next resolution.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2437, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to take all actions necessary to consummate the financial closing of Herndon Square Phase 3.
Great. May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2437?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Alvarado and seconded by Commissioner Hooker. And sounds like Maya, oh no, Trisha Manning. Well, I don't
So
know if
good
Trisha
af-
Manning's here.
Good afternoon. I'm Maya Hodari. I just want to introduce our invaluable colleague, Trisha Manning. This is her first time presenting to the board. She's the Director of Underwriting for AH, so I introduce you to Trisha Manning.
All right. Did you warn her of how we will haze her? All right.
That's okay. You guys are
All right.
family. It'll be
Welcome,
it'll be
Trisha.
fine. You're
Hope you
welcome.
have all the details ready.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I come before you seeking authorization to go ahead with the final and closing necessary to close Herndon Square Phase 3. Herndon Square Phase 3 is very similar to Herndon Square Phase 2 that the board approved in December of 2023, structured identically, if not very similarly. The property will consume of 178 units, of which 71 will be HomeFlex units that will receive Atlanta Housing. An additional 80 units will be LIHTC units, and the remainder will be market rate units. What we come before you seeking approval today is a loan amount not to exceed $15.8 million, of which 36 months will be at 0% interest for construction, and 40 years of a permanent loan for a total of 43 years. The permanent phase will be repaid by cash flows at 50%. AH also will provide 71 HomeFlex units, as I've said previously, for a term of 15 years with one additional 5-year extension. AH will also provide a ground lease for 75 years at a nominal rate of $10 per year. Now, I know that this deal has come before you previously. I don't know if there are going to be any questions, so I'm going to forward to our recommendation, which is to seek authorization to take all necessary actions to consummate the financial closing of Herndon Square Phase 3. Do you have any questions related to this closing?
Trying to catch up to a couple of these slides, so just give me a second. If anybody has a question in the meantime, feel free.
I have a question about the minority business participation goal. It is set at 55%. What has been the history of our ability to reach that?
Of the 55%?
Yeah, on Herndon, on phase 1 and 2.
So if I could, I would like for Senior Vice President Albert Morello to come to address that question.
Yeah, sure. I understand that this is not in your domain of what you came to speak about, but it struck me that, you know, we often do put the goal down, and are we actually achieving close to that or not, and how we then hold our partners accountable to it, or, you know, set a more realistic goal if we're not reaching it. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Albert
Excuse me,
Murillo.
sorry. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And why you feel that's a need for our employee unit?
Pardon?
So if we could, Commissioner Martin, we'll address the first question in reference to the MBE, WBE participation, and then we'll come back and address the question in reference to or in relationship to the one employee unit. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I was going to say it's the best of times and the worst of times. That's been our experience with the developer. When the developer Hunt began the infrastructure phase, they began the whole project saying that they were going to meet 55%. That's ultra aggressive. We didn't think that that was possible, and it wasn't, especially in the first phase. They were at about 13%. So that was eye-opening. We brought them in, and we didn't have to say much to them. The community was very vociferous and said, this is unacceptable. So they worked with us in partnership, and then for the next phase, which was the senior phase, they got almost 55%. And it was organic. It wasn't anything that was hinky, but we took them everywhere. We took them to all of the support agencies. We have, she's sick right now, but our Director of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion is just a well-known person, and she has a lot of relationships. So she was able to kind of shuttle them around everywhere, and they did very well. The next phase, they kind of slowed down a little bit, so it's been kind of undulating. But whenever they start falling a little behind, we kind of get to them and say, you need to improve your numbers. We're monitoring them as it's going along, and we've been monitoring them by phase. And as you know, it's an aspirational goal. So whenever they don't meet that aspirational goal, we have them explain why they didn't meet it, and we have them document their good faith efforts so that they can demonstrate that they are doing the best they can, and they can prove it. We've had them actually sponsor meetings with bidders before they issue the bids, and sit down with them and say, okay, give us your bids, and let's kind of work backward from your, number on the back of a napkin, because we need to have you tie it back to the bid documents so that it's a strong number that isn't going to be overly generous or something that's going to break you as a company. Because sometimes companies, small companies are very anxious to get that work, and they'll put down a number that's very low, and they won't even meet their costs. So,
Yeah, I mean, I asked this question partly because that is an aggressive number, and two, what often happens is that, people put an aggressive, ambitious number in their proposal, they score very well, and then they don't meet their commitments, and that is not okay, right? So, it's people who have been around long enough know that, you can sometimes get away with that, but we don't want to be the agency that does that, right? So, I think that one opportunity here, well, one, it's good to hear that our team is actually holding their feet to the fire and providing support, but one opportunity may be to partner with the city on this. I know that the mayor has reinvigorated his focus, given the amount of construction and development that is going to take place in our city. There's a big focus on the Gulch project as well, which is, down the street from us. So I would recommend that we think about whether we can help our partners plug into the forums that they host, et cetera. Terry, I don't know if that's already happened or whether that's, not quite relevant for these projects, but
No,
I just feel like that's a, easy resource because I know our team is small and that is not the case of the city, right? So.
No, absolutely. So we are currently participating through Albert's team with the city in their MBEWB efforts, and we're also partnering with the city as well as HUD to host a MBEWB Section 3 forum, I believe, in September, either late August or September. So we are partnering with those efforts and laying those efforts on.
Do we have, do people who, well, I'm saying people, do organizations and individuals that qualify as registered vendors at the city, are they automatically, is AH work automatically accessible to them, or do they have to go through a separate process?
Currently they have to go through a separate process to become certified under our program.
well, yes and no. So in order to do work for us, they have to be a registered vendor. And the reason they have to be a registered vendor is because we need to know who we're doing business with. But if they carry a certification from the city as a minority or woman-owned business, we honor that certification.
Got it. But they don't have access necessarily to the vendor network and database that the city has for MB and FB.
Yes, they do.
Oh,
Our
do.
staff?
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, and so we are deepening our communications with the city, and we're not as small as you think. We've been growing that arm of our outreach, and I've told my group that their main their charge is advocacy. So they are there to make sure that there's equity in our contracting. We want to make sure that there's robust participation wherever possible. And whenever it's not possible, it won't be because there was a lack of notice. We are going to make sure that those are amply broadcast before the bidding begins, because we don't want bid shopping after the bids have been received, because that's when it becomes very painful for minority businesses who have to decide, okay, well, I guess we'll take a haircut on this, but we wish we could have known ahead of time. And if we know ahead of time that they're participating, we can lock in their subcontractor utilization, and we can say, okay, you can't bid shop these. These are the ones that have to stay, and you can do whatever you want with the other bids, but we can offer some level of protection.
That makes sense. And I apologize for the segue, but this conversation is relevant in general to so many of the resolutions that will come through because of the level of acceleration in the work and development on our properties. So I hope that we'll think about ways to make it more robust in this domain.
Yes, and I'll just preview that we are tracking our MBE-WBE participation quarterly, and we are meeting or exceeding our aspirational goals. So.
Terrific. That's great to hear, and it's important for the public to know that too.
Yeah, that is one of the criteria that will be on our dashboard. We literally started tracking that performance in probably 2022 to be able to really understand whether or not our vendors, because we agree with you, respondents will place one goal within a proposal to win a bid, but are they really realizing? And so the other thing I want to point out is this board has been really, I don't want to say forceful, but you have strongly encouraged that we add a criteria of past performance as we look at any request for proposals. And so we've done that. And as we look at current respondents, we're also going back and checking their MBEWB participation to what they've said in their previous offerings.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I want to make sure we get back to Commissioner Martin's question.
And your question was related to the employee unit. So we have one employee unit, and that is the standard strategy of this particular developer. The employee unit is a maintenance unit, so it's usually looked upon as an additional benefit over wages and what have you for that particular employee. And typically within the industry, I think it's seen that the benefits outweigh the cost of having a boot on the ground 24 hours a day and having someone who is vested in the property, that lives on the property, who also works to maintain the property. So that one unit has been set aside for that type of employee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure. It might not necessarily be not specific to what you're presenting, but I think overall, I noticed in the first resolution, in the documents, there was a slide that showed amenities that were around the proposed area that we're purchasing, right?
Okay.
But what I have not seen as an amenity that should be highlighted when projects come before us is transit. In that it would be good if we start thinking about as all the housing that we build, that it aligns with whatever the vision is for transit in the future, and make sure that we're working closely with our transit partners locally and regionally, so that way people know that we're thinking strategically about that 20, 30, 40 years. Even if something doesn't exist at this point, in the future planning of the city, there will be an emphasis because of new density to push that.
Excellent point. And that is something we'll take into stronger consideration and make sure that we're doing that evaluation.
Right, and I think that those are highlights that when we look at every deal and offer whatever assistance that we can give, these are transit and amenities within the area are definitely items that we discuss internally. So I think it's just kind of presenting it to you, the process that we go through to get to this point.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments on this particular deal? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. All right. The motion is carried. Before we get to 2438, I do know that we do have a couple of people who are going to be presenting today. So I would ask, and I mean this respectfully, if commissioners have things that are not unique to the particular deal, if we can postpone those comments, write them down, give them at the end of our session so that we can get some of our special guests who are going to be presenting today in. And I know some people also have to leave early, so I want to just be pursuant to time. So with that, Lisa?
All right, Commissioners, before you is a copy of Resolution Number 2438, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to, 1, commit to enter into a home flex agreement and to provide project-based assistance for 24 permanent supportive housing units, 2, revise current business terms, and 3, take all actions necessary to complete the acquisition and financial closing of the Sylvan Hills 2 development.
All right, may I have a motion to consider Resolution 2438?
Motion.
Second?
You got that? All right, cool. That was moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Commissioner Kirsch. Tricia, it looks like you're back up.
So I come before you this time seeking approval to take all necessary steps to complete the acquisition and financial closing of Sylvan Hills 2. Since last presented to you, we have had some amendments to our business terms. So I'd like to highlight those. We're revising the HomeFlex unit mix to include studio, 1, 2, and 3-bedroom types. That was a requirement of the home funds that came into the deal. We are reducing the number of HomeFlex units, which are supportive housing units, from 45 to 24, per the request of the developer. Increasing the unit count from 227 units to 233 units. We have updated the rents presented previously to market rate rents provided by our internal market group. And we're extending the HomeFlex commitment expiration date to December 31st, 2026, and extending the term of the permanent loan period to 40 years in order to be coterminous with their 221D4 HUD loan. All of the deals that we're presenting to you today obviously go towards our goal of creating and preserving 10,000 units before the end of our next strategic plan period. So Sylvan Hills, this is just the property overview. I believe you guys may have seen this before. We have pictures of the proposed plans. So the need, I guess this would be a question for the reduction in HomeFlex units, which are supportive units with Partners for Home, is that the developer came back and wanted to make sure that the concentration of the overall property was appropriate and that they would be able to issue the services needed, and did not want to have a larger number of supportive housing units and they would be able to service appropriately. We thought that was a good plan, and we agreed with that. They also had issues with their topography. It was steeper than they thought, and when they started looking at, they had to adjust their site plan accordingly, which ended up with a couple extra units. Let's see, that's in here. We've discussed the home loan and the need to address the ability to have families at 50% AMI at studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. I think prior, we were just having those units at studio and 1-bedrooms. Our request for our loan is remaining the same at not to exceed $10 million. And the recommendation that we are seeking is to get all necessarily, all authorizations necessary to complete the financial closing for this property. Excuse me. Are there any questions about this one?
Yeah, so help me maybe understand. So I get the change that's been made.
Mm-hmm.
If I look at it, and I certainly don't want to make this too simplistic, but if I look at the subsidy that we had before, it was higher, but for more units. Now it's lower, but if I was to do kind of a per unit, average, it's significantly higher. So help me understand it sounds like we're spending more, but getting less.
To get less. Now, that subsidy, we have also included larger units. So now we have subsidy on your 2-bedroom as well as your 3-bedroom units, where prior we were only subsidizing studios and 1-bedrooms. So that delta may be the majority of that number that you're looking at.
So yes, we got 2 2-bedrooms and 2 3-bedrooms. Great. We certainly need more for families, but we certainly had a significant decrease in 1-bedrooms and studios. So I get that part. I guess I just want to make sure that I'm following, that I'm not missing something.
Right.
That's all. And if I'm not, then I'll move on.
Could you clarify any affordability requirements outside of the HomeFlex units on this property?
Sure. There are, let me just kind of look back at that.
While you're looking, I think just congratulations to the team. My comment, as we know, this is without tax credits, and this is a theme that keeps coming, is how we can do more of this without tax credits. So kudos to the innovation while you're looking for that number.
Sure, no problem. Well, and this is one of our co-investment deals, which we try to assist properties and projects that don't have tax credits that are more shovel-ready. that in here? Are you aware?
Yes, it's 100% affordable. So all 233 units are affordable, and it has like the reduction from 45 partners for home down to 24. We are subsidizing, like Tricia said, more larger bedroom units.
All right, and she helped me with the other part of it, just being it's 100% affordable. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that that was communicated so that it's on the record. So.
And with there no being LIHTC, I understand the question.
Okay, yeah.
I think it's also important to note that I believe when this project was first presented would have been approximately close to 24 months ago. And so the rent structure the HUD rents have actually increased since that time period. Now, I'm not looking at, number for number, but I do think that is also one of the factors in why you don't see a significant decrease in the subsidy, although the unit count has decreased.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will move to the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2441, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to submit a pre-development loan proposal to the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development and to provide a pre-development loan to the Benoit Development Group in support of the Inglewood Phase 1C homeownership development.
May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2441?
Motion.
Second.
All right. So moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Commissioner Faruqi. And Maya, you are up.
Good afternoon. So we come before the board seeking authorization to issue a pre-development loan in the amount not to exceed $400,425, and it will be made to the owner entity that includes the Benoit Group and their home builder, which is Cityscape Housing Partners. And this is in support of the Inglewood Phase 1C homeownership development. This particular homeownership development will create approximately 81 new for-sale units, of which we're looking at approximately 16 being affordable. And we will continue to work with the developer to increase the level of affordable homeownership units in this proposed development. So next slide, just a little bit of information about the location of Inglewood Phase 1C. So currently underway at our former Inglewood Manor site is Inglewood 1B, which is the senior building that began construction earlier in the spring. And so now we're working to close on Inglewood 1A, which will be a multifamily building at the site, and we're pushing the developer to also proceed with the homeownership activities at the site. It's in the Chosewood Park neighborhood, Council District 1. The council member is Jason Winston. I got that right today. And NPUY. Next slide. This is just the site map, and it again shows the location of the Inglewood Phase 1C parcels. So everywhere you see a star, those are the location of the homeownership units. Next slide. This is giving details on the pre-development budget. Again, the overall pre-development budget is for approximately $533,900, and we're doing our 75% pro rata share of any HUD eligible costs, and that puts us at $400,425. Next slide. So again, we're coming before you today just seeking your authorization for pre-development funding to support the Inglewood Phase 1C homeownership development. I invite any questions.
All right, any questions or comments? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2442, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to complete the closing of the disposition and development of the Magnolia Perimeter Bundles A and E with A&DP for the development of for-sale affordable housing in Vine City.
All right. May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2442? It was a motion? Does it? Oh. No worries. So I heard, I think, Commissioner Faruqi. We got a second? Oh, there we go. All right. So moved by Commissioner Faruqi and Commissioner Hooker. Thank you, Commissioner Kurtz. And who's up? Oh, Maya, you're back. All right. Have at it. Thank you.
Okay, we previously came before the board in November of 2023 to seek approval to submit a HUD disposition application to convey this a little less than 1 acre of land, its scattered sites, to ANDP. And we come back before you today seeking closing approval to proceed with the conveyance and financial closing of these 8 lots to ANDP. Just to go over some of the initial business terms that were presented in November of 2023 that have not changed. So we're seeking to award the development team a construction loan of about $600,000, and then $140,000 will convert into a permanent loan, and it'll be a per unit or per lot soft subordinate loan against the home buyer's home at their closing. And that amount is approximately $17,000. That soft subordinate loan will be active on the site for a term of 20 years, and it will slowly be forgiven between years 15 and 20. So ANDP is seeking to develop 8 affordable homes in the Vine City neighborhood. And then I gave a little bit of information just about the 3 active developers that have been procured to do affordable home ownership in the Vine City neighborhood, and this was previously provided in November, so I won't go into that level of detail, but it is included for you. So I'll go to the area map just to once again call out those 3 developers having specific lots that they're developing in Vine City. And ANDP has 8 affordable homes. Next slide. This just gives a little bit of information about ANDP's mission and all of the programs that they provide. They are also CDFI as well as develop affordable housing and do provide some level of down payment assistance. So next slide. So again, their development program is to create 8 affordable homes in the Vine City neighborhood for families earning no more than 80% of AMI annually. And we're looking to support them in proceeding with zoning so that we can get to a closing later in the year. So the next slide is the timeline. Oh, that's just a little more of information about they're going to do stick-built homes, so it's not modular, and that just gives an example, and again, the locations of their lots. This is just the overall timeline, so again, we're proceeding with the disposition and seeking closing approval. So we come before the board for your approval on this item, and I invite any questions that you might have.
All right. Any questions or comments? All right, they're letting you off easy today. I will ask for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I forgot to push the button fast enough. I did want to make one little comment about this, is that recently we lost a giant in our civic community, Hattie Dorsey, who was the founder and longtime CEO of ANDP. She was a preacher's daughter and a mover and shaker in this city for a voice for the voiceless, and I think she would be very proud of this continued partnership. So just wanted to make that note.
Oh, duly noted. Thank you. All right. Lisa.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2443, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to extend the HomeFlex Assistance Payments Agreement for Arcadia at Parkway Village.
All right, may I have a motion to consider 2443?
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Kurtz and seconded by Commissioner Hooker. And so, Shannon, have at it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Shannon Walker, Interim Senior Vice President of Asset and Property Management. And I come before you today seeking authorization for this particular development. The current board authorization for the HomeFlex commitment at this property is set to expire on August 16, 2024. This is a family community owned by Ashton South Fulton LP. Next slide. Thank you. South Fulton LP, managed by Ambling Property Management Company. It is located at 5150 Thompson Road, Fairburn, Georgia. The 292-unit property is comprised of 116 HomeFlex units, and they are a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Next slide. There are currently 109 households that are being served under our HomeFlex program, and of those households, we have 101 households who have incomes between the 50% AMI, and 8 households whose income is between the 51 and 80% AMI. Next slide. The performance results of this particular development: NOI is at $1,251,952. The operating expenses per unit is at $6,727. The FY23 HomeFlex inspection score received a pass rating score. The reason why this particular score is being reflected is because the FY24 inspection was just recently conducted, and we did not have those scores prior to this creating this presentation. And the FY24 business process review received an acceptable rating score. This property also met all of its MTW benchmark performance measurements, with the exception of the emergency work orders, which was at 91.5%. And we project, if we are approved up to a 20-year contract, that the subsidy will be estimated at $28.3 million. Are there any questions?
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, any abstentions? The motion is carried.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2444, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to extend the HomeFlex Assistance Payments Agreement for the Legacy at Walton Lakes.
All right, may I have a motion to consider resolution 2444?
So moved. Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Faruqi and seconded by Commissioner Kirsch. You're back up.
All right. So the current board authorization for this particular development, the HomeFlex commitment, is set to expire on August 31st, 2024. And so I come before you seeking approval to extend the HomeFlex Assistant Agreement for a term not to exceed 20 years. This is a 55-year and older community owned by the Legacy at Walton Lakes LP and is self-managed by their affiliate company, Walton Communities. It is located at 4725 Walton Crossing, MPUP, District 11. Council member is Marcy Overstreet. This property is comprised of 126 units, mixed with 1 and 2 bedroom units, of which 24 of those units are designated as HomeFlex. We currently have 22 households being served at this development under our HomeFlex program, and all households have income that are either at or below the 50% AMI. Next slide. The property results for this particular property, NOI is at $404,498. The operating expenses is at $8,023. The FY23 HomeFlex inspection score was a pass rating. This too was a property that had not yet received this inspection score prior to us submitting this particular board proposal. And the FY24 business process review received a needs improvement score. In the MTW benchmarks for this particular property, all benchmarks were met. It is projected that if this is approved for a 20-year contract, the HomeFlex subsidy is estimated at $4.4 million. So we're seeking approval for the extension of the HomeFlex agreement. Are there any questions?
I had a question, Shannon. The 16 units that are assigned to the Fulton County Housing Authority, I'm trying to understand how that works, particularly in light of their current turmoils. Does that
Understood.
potentially affect the residents there?
Understood. Those 16 units are receiving project-based rental assistance from Fulton County. And in 2009, Atlanta Housing met the need at that point in time under previous leadership to go outside of our jurisdictional bounds. And Fulton County Housing Authority was already a participant in that particular development.
But there's no operational risk to the residents by virtue of the Fulton County Housing Authority's current troubles.
So thank you, Shannon, for that. So what I will say, and within the last 24 hours, we have been in contact with Fulton County Housing Authority representatives. And in reference to this particular project, we are not anticipating any concerns. The residents that are currently being served under Fulton County's program, if there is an interruption in operations, they will then be eligible to receive a tenant-based voucher. And they would either be able to maintain residence at that site or possibly be relocated to another site.
You're welcome. Thanks, Terry.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, if not, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Okay, Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2445, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to enter into a HomeFlex Haven commitment for 9 permanent supportive housing units at Quest Residences at Holly Hills.
All right. May I have a motion to consider resolution 2445?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right. So moved by Commissioner Faruqi and seconded by Commissioner Hooker. Shannon, once again,
Yes.
welcome.
So in support of our goal number 1 to create and preserve affordable housing units, we are coming before you to seek board authorization to enter into a HomeFlex Haven commitment for these 9 permanent supportive housing units for Quest residents at Holly Hills. The initial term period of the agreement will be allocated in a 2-year increment up to 10 years, along with any allowable agreed extensions not to exceed a total term of 15 years. I want to give you a little bit of background because I know that this is a property that is near and dear to our chairman. So the initial board authorization for this particular development was approved back in 2017. However, during that same year, construction did begin, but then it was abruptly halted in 2018 due to some issues between the developer and general contractor. And as a result, the HomeFlex commitment that we issued expired. And so then in 2021, the development was able to obtain new funding sources and renamed the development as Holly Hills, which led to his resubmission of the application under the Permanent Supportive Housing NOFA. And that particular application was approved in May of this year, in which they received their notification in June. Next slide. So this community will be owned by Quest Community Development Organization, and it is also going to be self-managed by Quest Community Development Organization Management Services, located at 339 Holly Street, MPUJ Council District 3, and the council member is Byron Amos. This property will contain 40 units comprised of 1 and 2 bedroom units. 31 of those units will be funded directly from Georgia Housing Finance Authority Permanent Supportive Housing Program, which used to be called Shelter Plus. And then those remaining 9 units will be funded by Atlanta Housing if approved. It is expected that the construction will be completed by the end of this year. And the development is definitely underway. So in looking at the financial structure of the uses and for this particular development is estimated to cost $14.9 million. It includes a $5.3 million of new funding sources from American Rescue Plan COVID-19 Relief Fund, as well as a $1.5 million funding source from the City of Atlanta's Neighborhood Stabilization Program grant. If awarded, our HomeFlex commitment will support the developer in closing the $1.5 million Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta Impact Loan. and we fully support this development. In addition to that, between 2017 to 2024, the financial impact to Atlanta housing has been decreased significantly, roughly around about $3.6 million, and it is contributed to the fact that we have a reduction in units. And at this time, I will open the floor for any questions that you may have for this development.
All right, so didn't want to have to say anything, but I guess I need to say something. And that's that. So I am confused about one thing. So I know that when it was originally envisioned, it was going to be a supportive housing opportunity. We were going to have 100% in it, et cetera. Then when they reorganized and got capital stacked back in order, it was looked at as when it was reported into the public, was that it was a senior facility. So, but some of what this says here is still conflated. So I just want to make sure, or maybe I'm missing that part. So seniors, or it's a transition for homelessness, or is it both?
So it is both.
Got it. So
Okay. Okay.
not an either or. Good. That's what I needed to hear.
Okay.
Okay. All right. That's my question.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion? I'll call for the vote. Please indicate if you're in favor by saying aye. Aye. Please indicate by any opposition or abstentions. Hearing none, the motion is carried. And yes, it is going to be done by December.
Chairman Stewart, if I could, just for the record, the Quest residents at Holly Hills, Shannon's 100% correct. It is both. The property itself will be dedicated for individuals 55 years or older, but with the total unit count of being 40, 9 of those units will be designated for individuals who are formerly homeless and seeking permanent supportive housing. So I just wanted to clarify that for the record.
Because I think before it was like every unit was the same, but that breakdown is helpful.
That's correct. And as we're continuing to support the mayor's initiatives to eradicate homelessness within the city, we are encouraging our development partners to include a component of permanent supportive housing within their projects.
That's correct.
Thank you for that.
Is there a point of view around, out of the 10,000 that is our sort of share, if you will, of the 20,000 goal, what is the sort of target / split between seniors supportive housing for homelessness and then, everyone else? Is there a view on that, or are we just choosing to be opportunistic based on what neighborhood we're in, what the needs are, and what we can build?
So I do believe the viewpoint collides with your second point of being opportunistic of what is the need of the neighborhood, as well as the need of the population that is requiring support at that time. So to my knowledge, Atlanta Housing has not designated targets within our 10,000 units that for persons that will be designated as seniors, homelessness, or affordability within, quite honestly, the AMI structure, and I believe that's the same for the city of Atlanta as a whole.
I mean, if I can park this for our retreat, I do think that it's helpful now that we have so much underway, so much development underway and about to get underway, to have some view on how that is shaking out, number one. And two, if we have instances or opportunities where we have a choice. I mean, sometimes you don't have a choice, right? Depending on what kind of partner you have and what kind of property you have and what the history of that property has been. But when we do have a choice, which direction are we going to try to veer or, expand our impact in? It would just be helpful to understand what it's looking like today and what does that mean in the larger context of the reasons why that 20,000 unit goal was established. So
I can have a lot of thoughts on that at some other time. I will say that there is a specific and urgent goal around permanent supportive housing with a goal of 500 homes by December 31st, 2025. So the extent to which we can, and I think that's informed by the latest point in time count where we've seen an increase compared to historically. So that is a named goal, and I think it's worth us elevating where we're helping to meet that goal. But I think it's a very worthwhile conversation, and I think you're right, it's a good one for the retreat.
I 100% agree. And as we think through, we were having a conversation around 450 Capitol Avenue, especially with that being a proactive acquisition, we do have that choice as to what type of housing we want to influence within that community, and quite honestly, a community that is rapidly changing.
And I mean, honestly, it would also be helpful to inform that with the 10,000 we're not a part of, right? What is actually happening over there? Because if you're looking at the larger context of the needs of the city, we should be playing where we're positioned to play, but also where the gap is harder to close, so.
Lisa?
Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2446, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to, 1, amend the AH lease with Carnegie Library LP, 2, extend the lease term, and 3, allow for a sublease to Centennial Academy.
All right, may I have a motion to consider Resolution 2446?
Motion.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Mr. Kirsch. Man, keep it rolling, Shannon. Thank you.
All right. So Carnegie Library. This beautiful asset has a current lease agreement between Atlanta Housing and Carnegie Library LP, which is set to expire on July 30th, 2043. However, the sublease agreement between Carnegie Library LP and Truist Bank actually terminated last month on June 30th, 2024. Therefore, I am coming before you seeking approval for the following terms. For 1, to extend the current lease agreement by 11 years, to provide a total term of 30 years. 2, to sublet the Carnegie Library to Centennial Academy, which is located right next door, for an initial term of 20 years, with possible extensions for a total term up to 30 years, and to also take any necessary steps required by HUD. Next slide. This particular asset is nestled within the footprint of Centennial Place Apartment, and it is a historic asset where Truist Bank sublet this particular asset from July 2000 through March 2024. Unfortunately, Truist Bank elected to close their doors and cease their operations due to the decline in the need for those banking services at this particular location. Therefore, if approved, the site will continue to support and serve the community by becoming the administrative, education, and related space for Centennial Academy, which is open to students who serve students ages grade kindergarten through 8th. Next slide. The owner is Carnegie Library, LP, and it will be managed by Integral Management Services, located at 523 Lucky Street, Atlanta, Georgia, MPUM, District 4, and the council member is Jason Dozier. See how beautiful this development is? Next slide, thank you. Next slide. So the proposed terms, the lease agreement will be extended by 11 years is what we're seeking, up to 30 years. The proposed tenant will be Centennial Academy. We're looking to have a sublease agreement of 20 years, not to exceed 30. We're looking for the sublease to start on August the 1st of this year. The sublease rent will pay out a one-time payment of $50,000 and thereafter $5,000 a month with an escalated annual CPI rate. And the rent distribution will be paid out as follows. As you may or may not know, if I just take a moment to break down what that partnership of Carnegie Library consists of, it consists of Atlanta Affordable Housing for the Future, Inc., having 99.91% share, and Carnegie Library LLC, which is an affiliate of Integral, having 0.9%. ownership interests. That being said, the rent distribution will be paid out as follows. AH will receive a base rent of $13,628 plus 40% of the remaining rent balance of $18,000, which is a grand total of $32,176 on an annual basis. Integral will receive 60% of that remaining balance in the amount of $27,000 annually. And all existing debt will be paid in full at the execution of the sublease agreement start date. So what does this mean in the impact to Atlanta housing? We're looking at the fact that for this community, by extending and offering the ability to sublease to Centennial Academy, the site will continually be a staple within this particular development and serve the community and the people who live there. The annual lease payments to AH will increase from $13,628 to a grand total of $32,176. And this particular lease agreement term will be increased by 11 years, giving us a long-term sustainability, thus supporting our goal number 4 in our strategic plan by building and expanding our partnerships. At this time, I'll open any questions.
All right. Hearing no questions, I will call for the vote. All who are in favor of this, please say aye. Aye. Those, any abstentions, any opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2447, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization to take all actions necessary to revise the deadline for the proposed Civic Center Performing Arts Center development plan.
Okay, may I have a motion to consider resolution 2447?
Motion.
Second.
All right. Motion carried by Commissioner Martin and seconded by Commissioner Hooker. And so Maya, you have the floor.
Yes. So we come before you this afternoon seeking authorization to take actions necessary to amend the milestones outlined in the Master Development Agreement, addendum for the Civic Center Performing Arts Center. Initially, we had the addendum call out that we would execute. Is the mic on? Okay. That we would execute the addendum by January 31st of 2024, that the developer would submit their financial feasibility by June 30th of 2024. We would approve their development plan by July 31st of 2024, and they would close on the financial transaction by December 30th of 2024, December 31st of 2024. So since that time, the developer has, and us, executed the amendment in accordance with that timeline. They secured an inducement resolution from the Atlanta and Fulton County Recreation Authority in March of 2024. And when they went and pursued the inducement resolution, the city and Fulton County Rec Authority asked them to expand their feasibility analysis study and consider 3 different schemes. And so in doing so, they need additional time to actually complete that request. They did, again, comply with our need for them to demonstrate financial feasibility by getting the inducement resolution before June 30th. So we are coming for you today just proposing some new deadlines for them to complete the expanded feasibility. Next slide. I kind of whizzed through some of the background, just talking about the previous milestones and what their accomplishments have been. I'll go to the next slide. I talked a little bit about this, so I'll just show the site plan on the next slide. And this is just, again, pointing out the location. It should point out the location of the PAC. This identifies R1. So our request for action today is to amend the key milestones and allow them to complete their 3-phase feasibility analysis. So they would complete the first iteration or scheme for a financial analysis by August 16th. The next financial analysis per the city and the Fulton County Rec Authorities, their request to study is September 20th, and the third additional study is by October 31st. And again, those three phases are really associated with maintaining the existing PAC, doing some partial demolition of the structure, and then considering the scheme that studies the impact of full demolition. I want to just note that even though they're studying those things, that site is eligible for designation as historic building, and so there would be some additional approvals that would be needed if we were trying to pursue partial demolition or full demolition. So I invite your questions at this time.
I have a couple of questions. Did you have, Larry?
Look, no, I don't. That 31st doesn't move.
Yeah, that was my question. So is the closing still scheduled for 31st?
We have not changed that milestone.
Okay. And then my second question was, have they actually secured all their financing, or is that something we will find out in December?
So the largest portion of their financing, beyond some philanthropic donations, is this bond issuance. So the first layer is them trying to secure this, and then that leads them, that we can push them to on a parallel track to make sure they're nailing down the philanthropic donations.
So they have the bond financing as part of their plan. They have philanthropic, and then they have private investment as well.
They do.
So is the private investment piece done?
It is not nailed down yet.
I would highly encourage us to push them on a parallel path, simply because, I mean, at the end of the day, you've already, noted that while they're being asked to study demolition, that building can't be demolished because it has a historic designation. It would take some extreme measures and circumstances for that to be a even feasible path, right? So as long as phase 1 is done and phase 2 is done, from a development plan perspective, we're pretty comfortable, is my sense, right?
Yes.
That is not going to be a holdup for other investors. I mean, Fulton County may be requiring them to complete the full demolition piece, but I would be surprised if philanthropic investors and private sector investors were waiting on that piece. They probably just need to see phase 1 and 2.
You're correct.
Okay. If that is the case, really by September 20th, we should know if they have all their ducks in a row and if we're going to make it in December.
Yes, we can push them.
Yeah, I would highly encourage us to do that, and for them to show us evidence, particularly since this phase 3 piece is, it's not really relevant to the actual, feasibility of moving forward with the plan. It's a procedural requirement is the way I see it, at least at the moment.
Yes, understood.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please indicate by saying, by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Hearing any opposition or abstentions, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2448, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization for the business terms and to take all actions necessary to complete the financial closing of the Faircloth to rental assistance demonstration conversion for the Civic Center Phase R1 development.
All right, I will ask for a motion to consider 2448.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so moved by Commissioner Kirsch and seconded by Commissioner Faruqi. Tricia Manning, you are up.
Hello again. I come before you seeking approval to move forward with the financial closing of the Civic Center Phase R1. This will be the first phase of the redevelopment of the Civic Center site. It is to be a 148 rental units to seniors in the Faircloth to Rad program. The rent levels will be at 60% AMI, and that is to include any supplement needed from Atlanta Housing in terms of MTW funds. We will have a ground lease at this property not to exceed 75 years, and the Atlanta Housing construction to permanent loan will not exceed $7,175,000 of our MTW funds. Let me go to the next slide. So this is where this particular project will sit on the Civic Center site. The next slide, I believe, shows a rendering of the project. And next slide, as we start to discuss these sources and uses of the property. So again, the first private mortgage will be for approximately $5.2 million. There's LIHTC equity in this deal of approximately $40 million. Our age loan not to exceed is $7.175 million for a term of 43 years, including 3 months for construction and 40 years, again, to be coterminous with their first mortgage. There's a DCA home loan of approximately $4.5 million, and accrued interest and developer fee, deferred developer fee, closes out the capital stack for the project. Next slide. So total uses of approximately $58 million and the capital stack of $58 million, inclusive of the Atlanta Housing loan of $7,175,000. Next slide. So our recommendation is that we get board approval to move forward with the financial closing of Civic Center Phase R1 senior property, and to move forward with the first development within our Civic Center redevelopment. I open the floor for any questions or comments.
All right. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have one comment I want to make after we vote.
Anybody who wants to make a comment or question before we vote? All right. Well, then I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any abstentions or opposition? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you. This comment was not to have any influence on the vote and my approval of it. But in looking at the design of this, I just want to say, generally speaking, I think as costs have gone up, architects and developers have gotten lazy, and we continue to have a series of box-looking buildings all over the city. This will be a new box, but it still looks like a box. And I just hope we could push our developers, get with some college architect students for all that matters. We have a great school of architecture, but come up with something a little more creative than just another box to house people in. And it seems to me that more of our affordable units, developers are getting very lazy in their imagination about giving them a very aesthetic looking product. So I just wanted to say that irrespective of the development of this particular site. So.
Point well taken. No.
I was just going to say the same thing, point well taken, and it is something we'll work with our development partners to be more intentional about the design of our projects.
All
Well,
right.
thoughtful and compassionate, that the design is something not just functional, but something aesthetic and pleasing as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, before you is a copy of the resolution number 2449, where the Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia seeks authorization of business terms to take all actions necessary to complete the financial closing of the Faircloth Rental Assistance Demonstration Conversion for the Bowen Homes Phase 1 development in support of the Bowen Homes Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant Program.
All right. May I have a motion to consider Resolution 2449?
So moved.
And seconded by Commissioner Elliott. Thank you. Maya Hadari, close us out.
So we come before you seeking authorization to complete the financial closing for Bowen Homes Phase 1, and it will consist of 151 multifamily rental units. This is a HUD Faircloth to RAD, or we're using the HUD Faircloth to RAD resource to create 48 AH-assisted units of the 151 units in the building. They will have a range of rents, and the maximum rent level will be at 60% of the area median income. The ground lease for this particular phase will be approximately 75 years, and there will be a ground lease payment to AH of approximately $1,815,950. The total amount of the AH development loan will be $18,703,277, and it will consist of MTW funds as well as program income. Additionally, there are some other AH covered expenses. We'll use approximately $3.4 million in our Boeing CNI funds. We'll use an additional $2.6 million in MTW funds, and program income at about $4.8 million. And I want to say for non-federal, we have an expense of $40,000. So just a little bit of background on the next slide is we came before the board in September, and we were supporting the developer's submission of their 4% low-income housing tax credit application, as well as a pre-development loan. In March, we came back to the board to get approval to submit the HUD disposition application, and we've since gotten HUD approval of the disposition application. And so just a little bit more background on the next slide about the transformation plan, and some of this we've previously presented, so I'll kind of skip through it. Just globally, Bowen is 74 acres, and our goal is to create 2,000 new residential units at the end of the day, and the focus of our CNI portion is on 25 acres of the site, and we'll complete 756 rental units on that 25-acre site. So next slide. So for Bowen Phase 1 specifically, again, we're trying to move very quickly to get to closing in October, by October 26th of 2024, and that's in accordance with the HUD CNIG agreement. We need to close within 15 months of the grant agreement execution, and that's what's driving us to complete the closing by October 26th of 2024. The developer, as I mentioned, has been successful in getting 4% tax credits. Bowen Phase 1 will be created on approximately 3.7 acres of the Bowen site, and it'll create approximately 151 units, of which 48 are AH assisted. Next slide. This is a rendering of the building, and I have in my notes to push our developers not to.
So if I could interject.
That's not a box. That's not a box.
If I could interject.
That's so imaginative.
If I could interject, literally, one, I'm so grateful to our Board of Commissioners for your insightfulness and your participation in helping us as we move forward, and we move forward expeditiously. So as we're presenting, we're also talking, and we will be hosting a design competition. The design competition will help us really infuse a different level of creativity and innovation in our projects, but also it really speaks to the transition that we're doing as to how we solicit these offerings. As you all know, we have been less prescriptive in our RFP offerings, and it's literally, we've left it up to the development partner or to the respondent to share with us what their vision is. And so one of the things that we are working on now under the leadership of Dr. Ferguson is really establishing stronger requirements and more prescriptive requirements as to how we would like to see development occur, as well as development look within our communities. And so I had already turned to the page. And so if you saw me typing, I was typing to the team, because this is something that we will make a priority to do, because our communities deserve it, and affordable should not look like affordable.
I am so grateful to Commissioner Hooker for bringing up this point. And I want to add that the building we're sitting in is a great example, right? And I think that is a great way to sort of motivate our developers to say that this is the kind of thoughtfulness we want to see. And the fact is that these are historic neighborhoods, and the opportunity to build in these neighborhoods and redevelop them and revitalize them is both an opportunity and a privilege. So, we need to sort of remember that and push that, both on the front end and also, through other ways.
Absolutely. And what I will say is this building is an example of what happens when Atlanta Housing 100% controls the project. Because this was one project that we actually controlled the design as well as the development aspect and, quite honestly, the ongoing maintenance of it. So point well taken, actually point well deserved, and is something that we will work expeditiously to address.
So next slide. It's just, no, I've noted it. I'm following our leader's direction. Oh.
Let's keep going.
For the record, let me say, I'm not looking to decrease affordability because we add the aesthetic, but I think it's possible to have both, and I think our residents deserve both.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be treated any less than any development, any other part of the city, so.
Agree. So I spoke already about the unit mix, so I'll go to the next slide. This gives a more detailed breakdown of the sources and uses. With our born choice, HUD asked us to also put any C&I funding that we're spending on people and admin and those type of costs. So we call them Part B costs, and so you see those additional costs showing up in the development budget. Next slide. So our next steps are, we're here to obtain the final closing approval. We're pushing for our evidentiary submission in August. We've already submitted a preliminary HUD development proposal in May. We're going to do a revised submission by the end of next week. And then our drive will be to get to closing in October. Next slide. Again, we come before you today seeking your authorization to complete the financial closing for Bowen Phase 1 and create 151 new rental units at this site. And this, of course, demonstrates our dedication to achieving AH's goal to create 10,000 units within our strategic plan period. So I want to invite any questions.
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And any opposition or abstention? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, before we get to our President and CEO's report, I know we have John Majors, CEO of the Atlanta Urban Development Corporation, here to give us a presentation. And so why don't you come on up and present to us concisely.
Concisely, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for the opportunity. I'll take a quick personal note and just say thank you all for all the work that you do. I look around and I'm on a lot of calls, even this week with a lot of y'all. So I know you're super busy. So thank you all for all the work you do. And Terry, thank you especially for all the help that you've given us to get to this point at AUD, you and your team. With that, I'm John Majors, CEO of Atlanta Urban Development. I know that this was a request, so before I get into my standard presentation, I guess I would ask, are there any specific or burning questions that you all want me to really dig into as I move quickly through this presentation? If not, I will roll through it very quickly, and then you all just stop me if you want to drill down. So next slide. We'll go through these first couple of slides. This is all information. I've even heard you all address this multiple times, right? 20,000 units. We are all working diligently to get there. When you stack up what's already sort of planned and in the works, realized that we weren't going to get there, and that was a big reason for the creation of Atlanta Urban Development, to have a vehicle to do some things a little bit innovatively, to do some things that frankly didn't have some of the same requirements of like all the compliance with HUD and all those sorts of things. And so that 4,300 unit gap, that's where we're stepping into. So we can move quickly through that. Again, just sort of some of the building blocks of AUD. We can move through this one as well. This slide, I think, is probably the most informative slide. So if you look at on the left-hand side of this slide, those are the goals or the objectives of what we're trying to accomplish. And then on the right-hand side, those are just the tools, right? So deeply affordable rent. So Commissioner Kirsch, I know this is a hot button for you. One of the requirements before we will even have a discussion with a developer and everything that we do, we'll have to have 20% of the units at 50% AMI or below. Another 10% of those units can be at 80% AMI or below. Some of the deals that we are looking at are actually all 30% at 50% AMI. So deeply affordable rents, that 50% AMI is a difficult one to make work, right? It's all a big arithmetic equation. So that's a tougher one to make work. The permanent affordability, given that on the public land side, AUD will have significant ownership. That gives us the ability to control that affordability for a longer amount of time. And then even some flexibility in that affordability. So that's something that we're working on as we get into the development of some of the public land deals. We'll have more flexibility. Now, I will say that a significant amount of what my team and I are working on are actually deals that were not originally contemplated when AUD was formed. These are deals that private developers have said, hey, you all have these tools. We have deals that have gaps. We need help closing our deals. And so could we use some of the AUD's tools to help close private deals? So those don't necessarily fit into these boxes as neatly. But again, they are an opportunity to get us affordable unit production and more quickly, because some of those deals are already in process or they're really close to the finish line, and the tools that we can bring to the table help accelerate them. So, and we can keep moving. Again, just a little bit more about the tools. I think everybody knows, so we've got Housing Production Fund, public land, private enterprise agreement. We're working on, and the city's hired a financial advisor that's really helping us think through some of the low-cost permanent financing, and then things like external partner funding. So, working with you all, working with Community Foundation, et cetera, to how do we braid the capital stack for some of these deals. That is, as has been mentioned multiple times, as these deals become more expensive, we're trying to help developers find the funding that they need wherever it's available. So we can keep rolling.
Can I ask a question about the capital stack?
Yes, ma'am.
I was on the West Side Future Fund Board when those conversations started and that capital stack was being created. And some of the innovation was around having corporations invest funds which were a loan, but it allowed for them to basically, take it off their balance sheet and then take it back at some point. It's a long-winded way of saying, have we talked to the West Side Future Fund in terms of how they have structured their capital stack? Because it's not exactly, obviously, housing dollars and funds, but it is definitely a mix of private and public dollars in ways that, basically gives you more power. It may or may not be relevant, but I'm just curious.
Well, it sounds like a valuable conversation to have, so I'll make a note about that. And then there is a common app that has been created where if a developer says, hey, I've got a deal that could use some financing from any of the agencies in the Atlanta affordable housing ecosystem, if you will. And I don't think Westside Future Fund's a part of those calls, but we can look into seeing if it makes sense to have them. as
I mean,
part of this as
especially if
well.
we have a financial advisor, and I'm sure Sarah, like Commissioner Kirsch can be helpful too, but I distinctly remember that the former CFO of Equifax had to use his sort of experience and brain power to help them figure out how to structure it in a way where it worked, the combination of philanthropic funds
Sure.
that needed to be in the mix to make the leverage from the private loans work, if you
Sure.
will. So
No, we will certainly look into that.
And that's essentially what the community foundation funds are, is a loan fund and a philanthropic fund that are modeled. That's what, the 150 million is sort of half and half, philanthropic and impact, modeled very similarly after the West Side Future Fund model. The corporate piece is a missing ingredient, but is designed to be this partner, not exclusively, but to help facilitate this type of activity.
okay, interesting. But for my own edification, does the AUD also need to have, because the community foundation funds are not 100% of what is funding AUD projects, does the AUD need to have its own capital stack that is a combination of that and other funds? I mean, that was my understanding.
It's probably a longer conversation. I think the short answer is that you are not going to be able to do that through a public agency. And so you
Yes,
need a
that's right.
philanthropic.
That's why we have the other.
Yes, so
entity
the role that
discussion,
the West
yes.
Side Future Fund plays and the role that the Community Foundation plays is to be that aggregator of capital, to then partner, not hand in glove always, but we talk weekly on, filling gaps.
At least weekly.
At least weekly, to be a partner to the mayor's initiative, to be a partner to AUD, to help be that flexible capital.
Right, thank you. But that's a great suggestion. I think we should make sure that they, as well as anyone else who's interested and has capacity, should be at the table as we're having these conversations. This slide is basically, this is my sort of checklist, if you will, so my team. So this is labeled implementing while refining, while evolving. In many ways, what this shows is that we have been operating for a year, close to a year, with a private sector entrepreneurial mindset, and so we are really pushing hard to accelerate the delivery of affordable housing units and putting all the infrastructure in place, frankly, while we're in discussions with developers about how these tools can be used. So in an ideal world, I'm sure there are people who would say, well, you could have done one thing for 3 to 6 months, got all those boxes checked, done the next thing for 3 to 6 months, got all those boxes checked, and we're doing all of them simultaneously. But that's the way that we've been able to accelerate affordable housing delivery units as much as we're trying to. I think we can keep rolling. So you all know Midtown Fire Station, that RFQ went out earlier this year. We've got back, I think, a total of 5 respondents. The evaluation committee narrowed it down to 2 finalists, and so we are in the process of working with those. We're going to reach out and finalize those 2 finalists and move forward there and move quickly to master development agreement there. Next one, Thomasville Heights. That one is earlier in the process. I think we've just finalized the evaluation committee. We try to have a representative evaluation committee to try to have multiple voices in the room evaluating the RFQs. This one, because it's a former Atlanta housing site, public housing site, and it has HUD requirements on it. So this one, we normally try to really, again, in the spirit of accelerating the process, we normally try to use just an RFQ. This one will make more sense, and we actually have a requirement to actually issue an RFP. So we have an RFQ, 13 submissions, we'll narrow that down, and then we will invite some of those to submit an RFP. And keep rolling. This is when Thomasville Heights the developers, you'll notice some of these people in this slide look very familiar. We did a tour. That left-hand picture, that's at Focus Community Strategies, which is the community quarterback for the Thomasville Heights area. And so they hosted the event. Lots of developers came in. We did a bus tour. We went out to the actual site, and people were very excited about it. So again, 13 submissions. I think that's a big deal. I'll keep rolling. I see Larry's getting ready to bring out the hook on me. All right, so this is our, we have a small but mighty team, right? So it's myself as CEO, our COO, Karen Patton, actually used to work at Atlanta Housing, which is how I know she's so great, which is how I knew she was so great. We've got an executive assistant who basically keeps all the trains running on time, including me. Our public land RFQ development right now, Karen, from the COO perspective, is really driving that. I am doing a lot of the work with when the private developers come in. We just hired another senior project manager who's going to come on and really lead that private development negotiation side, because if I'm not there, the deal shouldn't slow down. And then we've got a senior project manager, and project analyst who are those are the folks who are really day in and day out. And so I know there's sometimes question about what are the processes. So at the sort of lowest level on this org chart, they will take the deals, they will do all the due diligence, they will process the deals. I've shared with them, I don't even want to have a conversation with the developer or about the deal until we know that it checks all of our boxes on affordability. We know that we have a working model of their pro forma. They've scrubbed it, and everything ticks and ties. And then I want to have a conversation with the developer. Let's see, keep rolling. And so then again, I know there were some questions earlier about our budget, and this is a very high level synopsis. So basically, our uses of cash, we spend a lot of legal and due diligence time, energy, and money, if you will. What's not shown on the sources of cash, as we move towards closing, we will charge our deals and the development teams reimbursement of the legal fees associated with their deal. Staffing, and then office in general, Wi-Fi and all those things, and then travel expenses. We don't really have very much travel, but we do get invited to conferences and things like that. Sources of cash, we have initial city funding, ground lease payments, deal fees, interest on loans. You can see the rest of that there. But that's all that I have. Any questions?
I'm just going to make a comment as the chair of audit and finance also on this Board of Commissioners. Obviously it was great to see that you guys were getting started and running on all cylinders, and we have members of our Board of Commissioners on the AUD board as well. But I do think that this year we will, button up a little bit, right? Our focus on what does this imply for governance for Atlanta Housing and our Board of Commissioners, and as well as having oversight on, this is a view of what is in the budget. This is not a budget, right? So, and having some sort of better alignment and connectivity between those functions. So,
and I believe we submitted what was our preliminary draft budget. Is that right?
yes, yeah.
Okay, yes.
I did get something,
Okay.
but I think as you're now sort of staffed, fully functioning, and there are deals happening. So just want to make that clear for everyone that we are paying attention to it, and more on that to come.
Yeah.
Well, and we remain open to any feedback, even constructive criticism. Absolutely.
And if I can add, from an oversight perspective, we are seeking guidance from outside counsel as to the fiduciary responsibility and oversight for our Board of Commissioners with this affiliate, with this particular affiliate, because I believe the affiliates that are most active will be the AUD as well as the Atlanta Housing Opportunity, Inc. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the right governance and oversight as well from our standpoint. So we will have that information shortly to share with the commissioners.
I think the biggest thing is when you have so many partners, you don't want to inadvertently take on their liability, number one, right? And you need to have the right protections. And two, just making sure that compliance and all those pieces are well handled.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
Yeah. If I could, I also want to thank John for his partnership. John took on a very, very different task that I think becomes different every day. But I do want to thank him for his partnership and his continued collaboration with Atlanta Housing.
Yeah, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. A little bit of a personal privilege. I want to comment now. I have to leave. Sarah's going to take over for me in my app. Close us out. A couple of things. Your the stream will not miss our CEO and President's report. So I just want to make a couple of comments. First, thank you to the audiovisual team. I've been looking at the progress that we've made from the thing, and whew, I see picture in picture and all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, this is amazing. So I am extremely excited to see that. Both welcome Tricia to the team, and also thank you. I want to mention, so John Majors has done a yeoman's work, his staff, board members. None of us knew how much work we were signing up for, and it is a lot, but it also is having a benefit to the city that we needed desperately. I just want to thank you there. No one should ever disrespect the consent agenda after this meeting today. Consent agenda is a great thing. We will make every effort to be at our committee meetings so that we can have a consent agenda. And then lastly, I just want to say I am excited about, I was accosted last year, say who, by a significant member of our community who said, when y'all are not turning enough dirt. That was last year. This year, I drive around the city and everywhere I go, I'm like, that's us. I see fences, areas, I see concrete being poured. If you look out this window, there's significant progress that's being made in the city. So as much as it is a lot of work, there is a lot of benefit that will have long-term impact on the city. And so I thank all of you who make it happen and present it to us. I thank all of my fellow commissioners and all the people that are here, including our secretary, for getting us to this spot. And there's a lot more work to be done, but I certainly don't want to not mention it as we go. A lot of times the flowers, there's a lot that takes place to get us to where we are today. And so thank you all for that. And so with that, I'm going to recuse myself from the rest of this meeting, but I look forward to hearing about the great work that you have in front of us. And thank you guys so much.
So I think that brings us to our report from our President and CEO.
Thank you, Vice Chair Kirsch. Good afternoon to our Atlanta Housing Board of Commissioners. I always am elated and excited about the opportunity to stand before you, but these meetings are, and the conversations we have even separate from these meetings are always very insightful and beneficial to the work in moving forward with our agency. So I just want to thank you for your collaboration. I want to thank you for your thought leadership, and I want to thank you for your partnership. It is very welcome by myself as well as by our entire team. I also want to thank my team. The work, and I agree with Chairman Stewart, the consent agenda, I actually have a better appreciation for it today as well. But the work that was presented today was a strong reminder of all of us of the energy, but more so importantly, the urgency of now that we're moving to make sure that we can answer the call to providing more affordability and responsible affordability in this city. So I just want to make sure that I share with our team that I'm immensely proud of their work and the way they have pivoted in such a short period of time to move with just such a level of intensity to make sure that we're able to realize our goals. Next slide, please. Today's actions, before you really lift up 3 of our goals under our strategic plan, we are moving very aggressively. In this, I would say I had a conversation with our interim general counsel. This is probably one of the most robust agendas that we've had in the course of maybe 5 to 6 years. So we will have a press release going out today, basically acknowledging the activity that was approved here by the board, but more importantly, the level of production activity that we're moving forward with very quickly here under the work of our team as well as the guidance and the governance of our board. But today's action really focusing on goals 1, 2, and 3. Goals 1, of course, is create and or preserve 10,000 units. Goal 2 is to really be intentional about enhancing housing resources for Atlantans in need. And goal 3, is create opportunities for our families to thrive. For goal 1, we literally, with this board's action today, have created and preserved an additional 1,457 units that will be introduced to the Atlanta market. Of the 1,457 units, we're looking at about 1,043 of those units being affordable with an average rate of affordability of about 71%. That's right here within this board meeting today. What I'm excited about is that we had 10 projects that came before you. Of those 10 projects, the total development cost is about $359 million. We have approved a total investment of $105 million of Atlanta housing resources to achieve that level of affordability. And so I actually think our team, as well as yourselves, deserve a round of applause for that today. And Commissioner Kirsch, you'll be happy to know that those projects are development on former public housing sites, the co-investment, as well as the home flex, and our very first proactive acquisition, which is under my leadership, which was the 450 Capitol Avenue. Secondly, the second goal, enhance housing assistance to resources for Atlantans in need. So while the unit count, of course, is under goal number 1, I think it's very important that we, to your point earlier, Commissioner Kirsch, that we point out what we're doing to lift up permanent supportive housing. And so 2 of the projects that were approved today, the Quest project at Holly Hills as well as Sylvan Ridge, will produce 33 permanent supportive housing units for a total unit count of right around 242. And so we're looking at 13% of those projects being dedicated towards permanent supportive housing. And it shows the fact that we're being intentional about making sure we're providing housing resources to all Atlantans that may be in need. And then our last, and this goes to the point of preserving our history of Atlanta, that just really looking at creating opportunities for our residents to thrive. The Carnegie Library is a part of the former Techwood homes, but it's also on the site now, the current day Centennial. We have about 183 children that live at Centennial Place. And while not all 183 children or youth may have an opportunity to attend the school, the fact that we are working with the school to expand their footprint really helps them to create and alleviate any opportunities for overcrowding. And so we are excited that when Truist decided not to renew their lease, that we were quickly able to find another use for the property so that the building would not be vacant. I also would like to note that Atlanta Housing has a seat on the board of Centennial Academy. That seat will be filled by Dr. Alan Ferguson. The vacancy has been in place now for a little over 3 years. And when it was brought to my attention, we're literally going through a scrub of all organizations that we partner with to understand what seats we have at Atlanta Housing so that I can quickly populate those seats with different team members. And so Alan will be serving on the board and will be representing Atlanta Housing's interests with the school. Next slide, please. So I'm excited, right? And I'm excited because we came before you last month and basically said that in FY25 we will close 25 projects, and those 25 projects will constitute over 3,700 units of housing, with 2,900 units being affordable. Well, we've closed on the first two. Let's clap. Thank you, Sarah. The first project that we closed on during the month of July was Columbia Heritage Senior Residences. And that property will be a 100% senior residence. It's actually on the site of the former Perry Homes. And so we're coming in to preserve about 124 AH-assisted units with a total development cost of right around $29.7 million. We're completing this project in collaboration with Columbia Residential. The second project was a group project and a group effort to get to this closing, but this is Heritage Village at Westlake. It is literally the first new market tax credit project that Atlanta Housing has been engaged in, as well as our HUD partners. And so this was a project that ended up being a labor of love on many weekends and nights so that we could make sure that we could get to the finish line. This is the old Job Corps Center that is on the west side of Atlanta. It's off of Westlake Avenue. And so we're excited to say that our contribution and participation will create 102 units of AH-assisted housing. It will be a mixed-use development, but it is much needed in that community, and I believe it will be the catalyst for more development opportunity along the west side, and specifically Westlake Avenue. Next will be our Back to School Expo, and as you leave and exit the building today, you'll actually see Back to the Block, which is another family expo we're doing. But what we are very hyper focused on is making sure that we provide and wrap around services to our children as they begin to start the new school year. And so we've had multiple back to school expos, and we have multiple that are occurring today. But on July 13th, we had our largest expo ever. We had over 300 participants come to the Andrew and Walter Young YMCA. Of those 300 participants, about 225 were actually youth and children. And they took advantage of the many services we have, but also they took advantage of receiving school supplies to help position them to be ready for this upcoming school year. And then the last note that I would like to share with you is that we are continuing to support the City of Atlanta's efforts under the Mayor's Summer Reading Club. And we're doing this in combination and collaboration with Book Rich Environments, which is sponsored through the National Book Foundation. We, as an authority, have received over probably 10,000 books through the course of that relationship. But for this particular event, we provided 425 books to students that came to Carver YMCA, and it was a three-day event. As you can tell, our team was very excited to participate with the youth and children to make sure that we not only participate in book reading, but also a book giveaway. And so it's really important to us. We talk a lot about housing and building more housing. It's really important that as an agency, we understand the opportunity we have to use housing as the catalyst and the foundation to lift our families to a different level of economic self-sufficiency. And so all the activities that we pour into our children and our youth really help to take us there. Next slide, please. As I stated, we have several events happening right now today. Here at Roosevelt Hall, we're having our Back to the Block. And the Back to the Block literally is a back to school expo. It's a family expo, but really just an opportunity for us to pour into our families and to make sure they have the resources they need. So you probably hear some of the chatter behind me. I believe we also will have food trucks as well along the block. We also have back to school events that are occurring at, I believe, Martin Street as well as Westminster. So it's been a busy day for our team, but again, it's important for us to make sure that we're pouring into our families. What's great about Martin House and Westminster is that we actually went to the properties. And so the families didn't have to go to another location. We went to them to make sure that they could have the resources available. In August, we are designating August as our resident focus month because we have several events for our residents during August. We'll be doing our resident association training as well as our jurisdiction-wide council meeting, and then, of course, a resident forum. And we'll make sure that we share all these dates and information with the commissioners if you choose to attend. I would like, though, to highlight the resident forum. The resident forum is an opportunity for Atlanta housing team members to share with the former residents of our public housing sites the development activity that is either underway or soon to come. And so at the meeting in August, I believe we will be speaking with residents from Herndon Homes, Layla Valley, as well as the former Bowen homes, to really make sure that they have the opportunity and have firsthand knowledge of the development activity that was be taking place, but also if there is a desire for them to return to the site, that we can really wrap our arms around them and make sure that we provide the correct guidance and resources for them to return to the site. Next slide, please. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to serve as your president and chief executive officer, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Madam CEO, I think when the time is appropriate, it would be good to hear from the new superintendent APS and talk about how we play a role in advancing his vision for young people. But I know, there's going to be a time for him to get acclimated and adjusted, but whenever that happens, I think it would be good to have that conversation and establish that relationship.
No, absolutely agree. I've already reached out to city representatives to make that introduction. While I want him to get acquainted to Atlanta, I also want him to get acquainted to Atlanta housing first.
I just want to applaud the momentum. It is so great to see. And sometimes when we're talking about individual projects, it's like, it's like that meter when you go to a charity event, you just keep seeing it climbing, right? And we're doing it 150 units, 200 units, 50 units at a time. But it is all adding up, and it's appreciated, it's noticed. We know it takes a lot of work, and it's really great to see. It's great leadership.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I think I reminded you all that Commissioner Faruqi hazed me for several years at the City of Atlanta, so that compliment means so much. It means so much to me. Thank you so much, Commissioner Faruqi.
I'll just close. Thanks for sharing about the board participation. Commissioner Elliott and I were having a little sidebar that is a way to accelerate partnership in a way that hadn't occurred to me when we talked about the importance of partnership. And so I'm not to get comfortable calling you Dr. Ferguson.
I know.
Thank you for that. And thank you for elevating that, just because as we think about how we accelerate that goal of really deepening our commitment to partnership and community, that's really significant. So thanks for taking that on and for that sharing that with the board.
Thank you.
It's a great way to develop leaders and give them exposure, and that's wonderful. So that piece is also, I hope that you will tap your emerging leaders and top talent to represent the agency and gain that experience.
That is 100% the goal. We have, I believe, at least 6 board seats on a variety of organizations, and my goal is for those seats to be populated by individuals other than myself and the senior leadership team. Absolutely.
That's terrific. Any other comments or questions? Thank you all. Terrific report.
Thank you.
Double down on the momentum. It's great to see.
Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Vice Chair, I'm sorry. I did fail to mention the Atlanta Housing Reach magazine that each of you may have. This is our senior resident edition, and I just wanted to make sure that we share it with you. We want to make sure, previously we were providing a digital newsletter to our seniors, and many of our seniors didn't really enjoy the digital newsletter. I think that's the best way to say it. And so we have been very focused, and I want to thank our marketing team to hearing that and making sure that we reverted back to providing a paper copy. This written newsletter has been delivered to all of the high rises, but we also wanted to make sure that you had a copy as well.
Great example of a recommendation in action. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
If there's no further business of this board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right. It's been moved by Commissioner Faruqi and seconded by Commissioner Elliott. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I didn't hear any opposed or abstain. Our meeting is adjourned at 4:07 p.m.
Thank you. And can commissioners Elliott, Faruqi, Kirsch, and President and CEO Terry Lee just remain for one moment so we can complete the Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc. meeting. Hopefully, our other commissioners will be comfortable remaining, but if you cannot, that's absolutely understandable.
So the purpose of this next meeting, I believe, is to move forward with the closing of Herndon Homes.
Yes.
Okay, move forward with the closing of Herndon Homes. The participation from Atlanta Housing is through our affiliate, and so we have to take this action in order to move forward with the closing.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and begin the meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask our IT professionals to confirm that the audio tape recording continues for the special meeting of the Board of Directors of Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc., and to admit any members of the public who have chosen to join to listen to this particular meeting online. And please confirm.
Members have been admitted and the meeting is continued.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Washington, and I serve as Assistant Secretary of Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc., and Interim General Counsel of the Atlanta Housing Authority of the City of Atlanta, Georgia, also known as Atlanta Housing. Before this special meeting is called to order, please consider the following announcements. We welcome the members of the public who have joined us in person at Roosevelt Hall, located 660 Atlanta Student Movement Boulevard, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia, for the special meeting of the Board of Directors of Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc. We also welcome the members of the public who have joined this meeting via audio conference. There's an option to view this meeting live streamed, and the members can find the link on the notices section of Atlanta Housing website. And access to that live stream is also available by accessing the link in the notices section of Atlanta Housing Board Docs. The link, copies of the agenda and resolution are available for review by the public at www.atlantahousing.org/notices. On behalf of the President of Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc., I am calling this special meeting of the Board of Directors to order. Today is Thursday, July 25th, 2024. The time is 4:09 p.m. I'll now take a roll to determine a quorum. Director Elliott? Director Faruqi?
Here.
Director Kirsch?
Here.
Director Lee? There is a in-person quorum present. The agenda has been presented to the board for review and comment. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda in a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, has been moved by Director Faruqi and seconded by Director Kirsch. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. Directors, before you is a copy of Resolution AHCI 2401, seeking authorization to take all actions necessary to consummate the financial closing of Herndon Square Phase 3. May I have a motion to consider Resolution AHCI 2401 in a second?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Elliott and seconded by Director Kirsch. I think it was Director Faruqi. I will just very quickly bring your attention, of course, back to the item which is permitting, giving authority for Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc. To execute documents related to the Herndon Square Phase 3 closing. The resolution and deal terms are identical to that was what was considered by the board at the meeting that just occurred. And I think as you all saw during that resolution as well, that our affiliate is going to be have a partnership interest in that entity, and as such will be signing an operating agreement and a couple of other documents to forward that closing. So this will provide authorization for those documents to be signed. So is there any discussion related to this motion?
Can you remind us why this is actually going through this entity?
Oh, yes, actually, good question. So, as you know, we have several nonprofit affiliates. This is our sole for-profit affiliate, Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc. And it was actually formed a number of years ago for this very purpose. There's an opportunity when we invest with our for-profit affiliate for the partnership to increase the amount of tax credit equity that it can access by taking accelerated depreciation based on our participation through this for-profit entity. And it doesn't create any additional risks to Atlanta Housing, but does provide an opportunity to increase a funding source and maximize the credits. So we did also had Atlanta Housing Investment Company, Inc. was a partner, a minority partner in the Herndon Square Phase 2 closing, and they had asked for us, for this entity to also participate in Herndon Square Phase 3 for those same reasons.
I see. So we get access to additional credits if it is through a for-profit entity.
Yes.
But do we get any return coming back to it, or no? It's strictly for sort of the front end. You know what I mean?
We get return, but we actually book our return as repayment of our. We share in the cash flow, but we book that as repayment of our loan. So we won't be receiving profit above that. That would be taxable. We'll be just receiving our cash flow payments that will allow us to repay the investment.
The loan.
Yes, ma'am.
Got it. But the servicing of but that cash is not enough to fully service the loan. It contributes to it.
Yes, and our expectation is that it will pay the loan by the time of maturity, but it will take obviously some time for that to be repaid. I think that's a 43-year term for that loan.
And so, what is the total amount of funds that this entity has, or do we just mix that in with our AH budget? Do you know what I mean?
We have funds that are used for its administration, but it doesn't currently have any grants or kind of dedicated funds other than administrative.
So when the cash comes, it comes to AH, not to this entity.
Right, because it's a pass-through entity.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. This is it's
excellent questions. Thank you so much.
It's helpful to know. Thanks.
Okay. If there are any other questions, okay. All right. So hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any oppositions? Any abstentions? The motion is carried. If there's no further business of the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Elliott and seconded by Director Faruqi. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Hearing no opposition or abstentions, this meeting is adjourned at 4:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.